me, there was something wrong with that. And it finally hit me, like, I can't change the world all by myself, but I'm a leader here. I'm responsible for these people, and I'm responsible, frankly, to my own conscience to do what I think is right. So I decided that day, it was a Sunday, and I was hiking, and I decided that day that I was going to institute a $70,000 minimum wage for everyone at Gravity. And the reason why I decided to do that was I felt that at $70,000, people could live a normal life, a normal, healthy life, have a little bit of margin of safety for emergencies, a little bit of savings. And there was also a study done in 2010 by Princeton that showed that dollars over about $75,000 don't actually help you out at all. I mean, you'll be happy when you get a raise, but then you'll get used to it and won't really matter. But dollars under $75,000, if you make less than $75,000, every dollar that you're making is causing you emotional stress. And the thing I realized is all of us only get to live once, right? And so we might as well have fun and live like the fullest life we possibly can. So I decided on a Sunday I was going to do this. Sunday night, can't sleep, night terrors. Tuesday night, can't sleep, night terrors. For 2 weeks, I was like, Dan, you got to forget this idea. This is not a good idea. I was going to take the profit of my company that I had built up with blood, sweat, and tears for 12 years from $2.2 million to just barely scraping by in 1 second. I actually looked at my pay and I said, well, for the safety of the company, I'm going to cut my pay as well to $70,000 so that we can get by until our profit goes back up and until we can make enough where my pay can go back up to where it needs to be, where I could be replaced if something happened to me and the company could continue. So it was a big decision. I was so sick of the night terrors that when I finally announced it, I saw a video of me announcing it later. And I'm looking at my face and I'm like, wow, that's like the happiest guy on the planet. And what I didn't expect was there had been a whole conversation brewing about pay, about lifestyle, about how we all relate to each other, and about this growing gap about how some people are getting left behind. And my most conservative Republican friends thought it was a huge problem, and my most liberal Democrat friends thought it was a huge problem. But it wasn't a problem that we were really talking about. You know, money, we're always taught it's not polite, it's rude, like, let's not talk about that. And so what happened was apparently there was this big conversation, and the analogy I would use, there was a big parade going on all throughout the streets of the United States. And I ran out in the middle of it and had a flag all of a sudden, and everyone decided, oh, look, Dan started this big parade. I'm not so sure that's true, but a couple things happened. The New York Times got wind of it, and they actually wrote a story about it, and it became a viral sensation. It was the #1 story on Facebook for 2 days. It was the #1 story on Twitter for 2 days. It was the #1 story on Reddit for 2 days. It was the #1 story on the New York Times' own website for over 2 days. And every major media organization in the world, not in the United States, in the world, was calling us, trying to cover us. And I was flying all over, I was trying to like find the right way. And all of a sudden my mission changed a little bit in that moment because I wanted to just solve this for the 30 people that got their pay doubled and the 70 people that were under that pay rate that got a raise. But what I accidentally did was created a conversation where all of us together decided at once, this is a problem, and this is something that we're all going to work on together in our own way. A lot of people have asked me, Dan, do you expect other people to follow suit? You know, I guarantee you if Kevin, the owner of the Flying M, could afford to do what I did, I guarantee you he'd do it. I don't think it's realistic for that business, right? Every business is different. Every business owner is different. Every situation is different. But I guarantee you that Kevin has contributed to people that work at his company and people that used to work at his company living the American dream. achieving middle-class status, things that we all value. And so my challenge to you guys as business leaders is think about this. Think about, excuse me, is this an area of concern for you? And in Seattle, where we have a lot of multimillionaires and billionaires, many of whom are my friends, I asked them this question: would you rather turn over millions and millions of dollars to your grandkids, or would you rather turn over a society where those kids and grandkids can thrive on their own, where they can chart their own course? And I think it's so tempting for us to always grab on, always take more, right? But actually, when we let things go, there's just, to me, I feel so free, and I feel so content and comfortable with that. And so it's been a crazy whirlwind. It's been fun to experience, but honestly, I'm a little bit sick of the attention. Attention feels really good up to a point, and I passed that like a long time ago at this point.
Here's some attention for you.
Thank you. My 40-year goal comes from Idaho. I have a 40-year goal. By the time I'm 70, there's one thing I want to achieve. I would actually challenge everybody maybe just to take 20 seconds right now and think, what's the one thing in life that if you could achieve this one thing, you'd be willing to give up everything else for it? So my calling, my one thing, I just want to be a small little speck of sand in a revolution where business ceases to be about financial engineering, greed, always focusing about money, and it goes back to our Idaho way of doing business, which is serving others, having a purpose. And my friend Garrett over there, who I went to Nampa Christian with, he always jokes around that we have to take over the whole world and have world domination. I'm an underdog. I think Idaho's an underdog. I think we can do it. So I would ask you and I would encourage you on two things. One is when it comes to the economy and the opportunity and people getting ahead, how can you lead yourself? How can you lead other people to make a contribution to this problem? Number one. Number two, what's that one thing? And I don't care if you're 15 years old. I don't care if you're 90 years old. We all have some amount of time left. What's that one thing that you want to accomplish before you sign off and say, you know, I'm going to go to the beach for a while? And I think that if we lead ourselves and we lead others in that way, I think look, we live in a great country. We live in a great world. We're all so lucky. I think it's just going to get better and better. So I'm pretty excited. And I'd love to answer some questions if anybody has one. You can take the gloves off. Go ahead.
Over the last month, how many job applications have you received?
So funny thing about that is, prior to the announcement, we were getting between 200 and 300 job applications per open position. And that to me is the exact right amount. Since a month ago when we made the announcement, we've gotten thousands, tens of thousands even, for every single position, and it's actually not all that helpful. If I stuck 10,000 resumes on your desk, what would you do? Guess I have to quit my job and just sort through resumes the rest of my life. So it's been challenging, and we're underdogs in this. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you get a lot of press and everything becomes easy. There are advantages, but it's a huge distraction. And actually, there was an investment firm that made a ton of money by betting that companies that got a lot of attention, a lot of press, would fail or would lose value. And I think we overestimate how much it's worth to get attention, how much it's worth to be front and center on stage, and we underestimate the quiet strength inside of us that says, always do the right thing. Always live by your values. So it's been a whirlwind on resumes too, and I think we're gonna get some good people, but to be honest with you, and this was not my intention, the next week after everything broke, people were in the office round the clock, you know, just trying to survive. We were in serious crisis survival mode. And for the most part, that's calmed down a little bit now for the company. But for me, I said this week, I don't want to do any media. I was like, I'm sick of it, no more. But I got to do the Nampa Chamber, right? Like, and then there were a few other things that came up too. So this time I mean it, no more. Thanks for the question. Yeah, what's your name?
Nicole.
Nicole.
I applaud you on following hard as a leader.
Thanks.
For doing that. Have you thought through the sustainability of your business model over time and what that would look like?
I've had a lot of help thinking through it. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a very famous, very well-respected individual who's probably one of the top 2 or 3 broadcasters in the history of radio in terms of success, who came out and said, and also some other folks, I'll combine some comments, who came out and said, everyone that works for Dan is going to be on food stamps. Everyone that works for Dan is going to be on welfare. It's going to kill their drive and motivation. Human nature is going to take over, and this company is going to implode, and they will forever be an example of how to destroy a company and how to destroy a society. So I had some help thinking through it. And I actually think that Rush Limbaugh and some of the other folks, I think they're half right. And you might say, Dan, why would you do that if you think they're half right? I do think they're half right. I think what they say has a lot of merit. But what they're doing is they're appealing to kind of the part of human nature that I think we're moving away from. And I think I'm appealing to the part of human nature that we're moving toward. And at the end of the day, it's going to be an execution thing, right? Can we pull it off? I think we're underdogs here. It would be a lot easier and potentially more sustainable to be conventional and keep going. But I think this is what leadership is about. It's taking risk. And there's another word, capitalism, that's about taking risks, right? When we all do the same thing, when we all have to do the same thing, you know, I've been called socialist, communist, whatever over the past month. Isn't that never mind. Isn't that communism to say that we all have to do the same thing, that no one can stick out? So I'm actually sticking out as a unique individual, and I don't want you guys to follow me. I don't want anyone to do what I'm doing. I want you to do what's in your heart, what you think is right. And I think if we do that, instead of always trying to just copy each other and do the same thing, I think we'll get farther faster. So I guess to answer your question, I'm going to be working pretty hard. Thank you. Yeah.
You may have answered my question, but